It began on a sweltering morning in India. A sanitation worker was sweeping an alley when his broom scraped against something solid. He thought it was just a bundle of rubbish. But as the dust cleared, the shape of a human arm emerged. A young woman lay motionless, her skin an unnatural shade of jet black, as if every drop of blood had risen to the surface. There were no wounds, no signs of a struggle, and no clue why death had painted her body this way. Police moved fast, fearing this might involve a foreign victim and an international incident. But the autopsy revealed something far more disturbing. The victim was not a foreigner, but an Indian woman named Lisa. She had been injected with a banned toxin so rare it could only be found in research laboratories. And this toxin carried a dark history. 10 years ago, it had been used in a murder that was never solved. A murder that had destroyed the life of one man. Former Detective Lassie. When he saw the news, his hands trembled. The blackened skin, the method of killing, it was the same as the case that had taken his daughter. And now the ghost of that killer had returned. Later during the investigation, Lassie himself was attacked by the killer. But the attacker, in a hurry, did not inject the full dose of the poison. So only part of Lassie's body turned black and his life was not in danger. Even so, this did not pull Lassie out of his downfall. The reason he became like this was because the victim back then had been his daughter. As a father, he could not avenge his child. That was why he never recovered. Now seeing the killer appear again, Lassie swore he would bring him to justice. He went to the police station and voluntarily applied to take charge of the investigation of these cases. His superior understood Lassie's feelings over the years, so he agreed without hesitation. After receiving permission, Lassie immediately went to the crime scene in Kerala. With the authority from above, Lassie took over the entire task force. Without any pause, he threw himself into the investigation. With his years of investigative experience, Lassie quickly found some things the previous officers had missed. The first was the location where the body was dumped. Lassie noticed that in front and behind this garbage pile there were surveillance cameras, but only here there was a blind spot. The killer was able to find this spot precisely and kill Lisa here. Clearly, the killer was very familiar with the area and was likely a nearby resident. In addition, Lassie noticed that among Lisa's belongings, a heart-shaped gold necklace was missing. Investigation showed that this necklace was specially bought overseas by Lisa's boyfriend Suman as a birthday gift for her. But that very night, Lisa was killed and the necklace disappeared. If it had been an ordinary detective, they might think the killer was after money. But Lassie noticed that Lisa still had other gold items on her and even a lot of cash. Yet the killer did not touch any of it. This clearly contradicted the idea of robbery. Moreover, Suman said that the necklace was given to Lisa at her birthday party that very night. Afterward, the two left the bar together. Suman escorted Lisa the whole way. Only when they were near her home did they part ways. Lisa said she did not want her parents to meet Suman so soon. The killer had been able to track Lisa's movements in such a short time and kill her, which was truly strange. Looking at these complicated clues, Lassie watched the nearby surveillance footage again and again. From the images, it seemed Suman was telling the truth. He sent Lisa to a corner close to her home. Then Lisa walked through a small alley and appeared on a neighbor's camera. She was then less than 50 meters from her own home. Yet, the killer was able to find such a suitable place to strike in that short distance. Lassie began to suspect the neighbor was the killer, but he did not jump to conclusions. Instead, he continued watching the footage carefully. About 20 minutes after the forensic estimate of the time of death, a man dressed in black suddenly appeared in the surveillance footage. For some reason, he froze in place, then fled in terror as if he had seen something frightening. Lassie believed this man must have witnessed something and might hold important clues. He immediately searched other surveillance feeds to track the black-clothed man's movements. After repeated checks, the police found that on the night of the murder, this man had been circling the nearby roads as if jogging at night. This meant he was most likely a local resident. Lassie quickly set out following the route the man had taken. During the search, Lassie noticed a black car parked by the roadside. On its window, someone had drawn a heart-shaped pattern that looked exactly like the missing necklace. Lassie was certain this was no coincidence. He found the car's owner to ask about it. The owner was an elderly man in his 80s who said he had no idea where it came from. Because of his age, he rarely drove, and the car stayed parked by the road. He guessed someone passing by had drawn it casually. Although he got no useful answer from the old man, Lassie's team still managed to identify the person who had drawn the pattern. They found a fingerprint left in the dust on the window and matched it to a young man named Emu, aged 23. Lassie then pulled up records on Emu and found that he was the same mysterious black-clothed man from the surveillance footage. The files also showed that Emu had been arrested before for using prohibited substances. With this information, Lassie began to suspect that Emu might be the one who killed Lisa. He had Emu brought to the station but did not interrogate him immediately. Instead, he placed him in an interview room to observe his behavior. For the first 2 hours, Emu seemed perfectly normal. Then he began to grow restless, pacing the room and drinking water from the dispenser repeatedly. This was unlike any typical withdrawal reaction. Just as Lassie was puzzled, Emu suddenly started drawing with dust on the wall. Lassie saw he was sketching the face of Lisa. Records showed Emu had never studied art. While Lassie was still full of questions, Emu seemed triggered by something and quickly erased the drawing before rushing back to drink water frantically. In moments, he emptied the dispenser. His eyes turned to bloodshot and he became violent. When Lassie and the others went in to stop him, they found him in the restroom drinking filthy water. They dragged him out, and once he calmed a little, Lassie began questioning him. First, Lassie showed him the footage and asked if he was the man in black. Emu admitted it. Then Lassie asked why he had fled in terror. After a moment of hesitation, Emu claimed he was very afraid of owls, and that night he had seen an owl which made him panic and run. Lassie did see a bird in the footage but did not believe this explanation. He suspected Emu had been using illegal drugs and was hallucinating. When Lassie mentioned the drugs, Emu's expression became uneasy. The police noticed it. Lassie's assistant directly asked if Emu had killed Lisa during a robbery for drug money. Emu grew even more nervous. After a long hesitation, he revealed something the police did not know. Emu said he had known Lisa many years ago. They had even been lovers, but broke up for various reasons. His use of banned substances was due to desperation. When he was young, he had accidentally fallen into water and nearly drowned. Underwater, a giant turtle appeared and saved him. Since then, he had a condition where he could remember anything he saw but suffered constant severe headaches. There was no cure, and doctors prescribed sedatives that were extremely expensive and strictly controlled in India, costing tens of thousands per bottle. His poor family could not afford them, so he resorted to buying cheap counterfeit drugs on the black market, which led to his arrest. If this was true, then Emu was not the villain the police imagined, and likely not Lisa's killer. During the conversation, Emu suddenly had another headache and collapsed unconscious. Lassie sent him to the hospital where tests confirmed brain damage in a certain area. The prescribed medicine matched what Emu had described. Clearly, he had been telling the truth. When Emu awoke, Lassie asked why he drew the heart shape on the car window. Emu said during a headache he had seen the pattern in a reflection on the water's surface and drew it to ease the pain. Hearing this, Lassie reviewed the footage again, focusing on reflections in the water, and indeed found a new clue. He suspected that the person who took the necklace was the killer and that he had stayed at the scene without leaving. Lassie called for more surveillance footage to trace the suspect, but found nothing. The killer was too familiar with the area and left no trace. While Lassie was frustrated, he overheard 2 street cleaners talking about the case. They mentioned the strange appearance of an owl in the city. Owls were nocturnal and rarely appeared in urban areas, yet one was seen at the crime scene that night. This was unlikely to be a coincidence. Lassie began to suspect the owl was kept by the killer and launched an investigation. For long, Lassie indeed found a lead related to the owl. A blind girl told him that about a year ago at a certain corner in District 6, she often heard the unique hooting of an owl late at night. The sound was so distinct that she remembered it clearly. But after a few weeks, the sound stopped completely. Following her information, Lassie located the apartment from which the sound had come. The landlord said the unit had been a shared rental with frequent tenant turnover. As for whether any tenant had kept an owl, the landlord did not know. However, one tenant stood out in his memory. This person had dark skin, always wore a mask, and had even painted the entire room black. The landlord said the tenant had moved out 6 months earlier, and the room had remained vacant ever since. Lassie entered the room and found it completely dark inside with a strong, foul smell. In one corner of a cabinet, he found a crumpled piece of paper, which turned out to be part of a burned magazine cover. Continuing his search, he discovered a glass bottle on top of the cabinet. He immediately recognized it as containing the same toxin that could blacken the body. It was now clear that the killer had lived in this rental and was likely the masked tenant. This also explained why the killer knew the area so well and could use the blind spot to strike Lisa. Even so, identifying this person was still difficult since the landlord had never seen his full face and there were no records of his name or ID. While the investigation stalled, shocking news arrived. In another city, a similar case had occurred. This time, the victim was also a woman killed in an alley. Lassie rushed to the scene and learned that the victim was Maya, a cosmetic doctor specializing in skin whitening. Then Lassie noticed something interesting. The burned magazine fragment found in the rental was from a publication by Maya's company. Lassie believed this was no coincidence. Digging deeper, he discovered that Lisa had previously collaborated with Maya's company. Even more surprisingly, the other magazine fragment from the rental was from the publishing house where Lisa worked. With these links, Lassie decided to investigate the model on the burned cover named Mia. Lassie suspected him because records showed Mia had undergone skin whitening surgery at Maya's company not long before. That meant Mia had been in close contact with both victims in a short time, which was highly suspicious. Lassie assigned his assistant to tail Mia. When Mia went to the publishing house, the assistant secretly planted a listening device in his scarf. Through the device, Lassie learned that Mia had come to confront the publisher. Mia had originally been chosen as the cover model for the magazine. To fit the theme, he had paid for skin whitening. But recently, the producer had replaced him with his own daughter, claiming Mia's skin was too dark for that month's theme. Mia's questioning received no answer, and the magazine boss even mocked him harshly. Hearing Mia's angry shouts, Lassie sensed that he might act recklessly. Coincidentally, there was an event at the publisher that night, and the producer's daughter would attend. Lassie hurried to the venue to prevent trouble. There, he ran into Lisa's boyfriend Suman and learned that he also worked at the publishing house. He was the one who had discovered Mia in the first place. Suman explained that Mia had been working in a pharmacy when he first met him. Suman noticed that although Mia's skin was dark, he had a unique temperament perfect for a badminton-themed shoot. He invited Mia to audition, and the boss immediately signed him as a professional model. At first, Mia got along well with everyone and treated Suman warmly. Suman thought this was just gratitude. But on Valentine's Day last year, Mia suddenly confessed to him. He took out a heart-shaped necklace as a token. Suman had no feelings for him and refused firmly. Still, Mia insisted on giving him the necklace as thanks for helping his career. Having already rejected him once, Suman accepted it reluctantly. After that, their relationship cooled and communication was limited to work. Later, Suman began dating Lisa. To please her, he gave her the necklace as a birthday gift. Hearing this, Lassie's suspicions solidified. He was beginning to guess the killer's identity, but still did not understand why Mia would harm his daughter. Then, by chance, Lassie saw a photo of Mia before his whitening surgery in a promotional magazine. The face looked familiar. He mirrored the image and changed the hairstyle on his tablet. The moment he saw the result, Lassie froze. He had seen this face before many years ago. Back then, his daughter had just entered university, and because she was beautiful, she quickly drew many admirers. One of them, named Jeff, pursued her relentlessly. She was not interested and became distressed. In the end, she called Lassie in a video call asking for help. Lassie put on his most intimidating police demeanor and warned Jeff that if he kept bothering her, he would be jailed. After that, Jeff stopped. In that video, Lassie had also seen a dark-skinned girl who kept an owl. It was Mia before whitening. At the time, she seemed close to Jeff. Putting everything together, Lassie suspected that Mia had liked Jeff. Seeing him attracted to Lassie's daughter, she had grown jealous. She had stolen the toxin from a laboratory and killed Lassie's daughter. Later, when she learned Suman had given the necklace she once gifted to Lisa, her jealousy flared again. She killed Lisa the same way. And because she had once lived in the area, she knew it well enough to find the blind spot for the attack. As for Maya, her death was likely revenge for the failure of the whitening procedure to match the magazine image. If this was true, then the producer's daughter was in grave danger. As if to confirm his fear, Lassie's assistant reported that Mia had just taken the producer's daughter to the beach. Realizing the urgency, Lassie rushed there and arrived just as Mia was about to attack. Without hesitation, Lassie shot and killed Mia, saving the girl. With that, all mysteries were resolved. The story ended. The plot was not new and could be considered average, but its logic was fairly sound, and most parts made sense. In the end, the story was about the twisted corners of human nature. Lassie's obsession came from love. Mia's madness came from hate. Coincidences and misunderstandings intertwined, dragging everyone into tragedy. It showed that sometimes what breaks a person is not a huge event, but an emotional knot they cannot untie. If they cannot overcome it, they may take extreme actions, harming others and themselves. The waves crashed against the shore as the night wind howled. On the empty beach, Mia tightened her grip on the terrified girl. Her eyes burned with the same madness that had left 3 bodies in the morgue. But before the blade could fall, a single gunshot shattered the darkness. Mia collapsed onto the sand, her fingers clawing at the earth as if trying to drag her hatred back to life. Detective Lassie stood over her weapon, still raised his breath, heavy but steady. He had finally ended the hunt that had haunted him for more than a decade. The producer's daughter was safe, yet there was no triumph in his eyes. Only the weight of knowing that love and hate had once again bled into each other to create tragedy. As the police lights washed over the beach, Lassie looked out into the black water. Some wounds heal with time, others never close. And sometimes the most dangerous killer is not the one hiding in the shadows, but the one we keep alive in our hearts.